Okay, guys, I'm here. Hello. Welcome to the VP Debate Night stream. Taftage is with me, and Art should be joining shortly. Let's, here. Let's... Hello, Taftage. How's it going?
Hello, how's it going? It's going good for me.
Where's Arch?
It's a great question. Where is Art?
Arch, what are you doing?
He's just not feeling it tonight.
He said he'd be here. In fact, he said he'd be here about 5 minutes ago, so...
Tisk tisk. I was raid leading in World of Warcraft just
Wait,
five
really?
minutes ago. Yeah.
You... Hold on. First of all, you play World of Warcraft. Secondly, you play it now? Nowadays?
Yes. Yeah, it's great. The latest season is great.
Um,
Um,
are you talking classic at least, or...
no, proper like retail. Latest expansion. Wow.
Oh, man. I don't
Yeah,
know how to
big
feel.
bombs dropping.
I don't know how to feel about that.
It's pretty fun. Yeah, I think this is one of the better expansions so far.
The dragon one?
It's actually called The War Within. It's all about dwarves,
Oh,
for the
the
most part.
dragon one was the previous one, right?
Yeah, and dragons are lame, and all the models were like gay, and they added like a new gay class. It was terrible. But the new one, it's about dwarves, and dwarves are awesome. So good start.
I see.
Mhm.
Gonna be honest, when I was like in high school or like early university, I had the WoW addiction, but back then it was Burning Crusade and Lich King.
Oh, nice.
Since you're a Zoomer and I'm
Classics.
a millennial, but
Yeah.
that was one of the reasons why I failed out of school for sure. Was that game? It got to, like I went back. I've gone back a few times just to like try it out again, and I can definitely
hmm
feel the itch, but I don't think I'll ever actually
hmm
play it again the way that I used to. You know?
Yeah, I totally get that. The itch is so powerful.
Yeah.
It definitely it'll like suck me in for like a month every now and again. And it's so far this latest WoW binge has lasted longer than it typically does.
Uh oh.
So yeah.
Are you no lifing it?
Not too much, just because I've got other stuff that I want to get done every day. And I'm like not committed to gearing up like super fast or anything. So I just like log in once a week and do
Right.
like the
Right. Yeah.
raid.
Yeah. Okay, so we have like something like 7 or 6 minutes to go till this starts up, and
Oh
Arch
boy.
hopefully will arrive. Let's see. Nope, he's still not down in any of the channels. I guess we'll just give him a minute. If not, I guess no Arch. I guess
It'll
we'll just
be
yeah.
tragic.
Okay, I'm gonna try to find something here real quick. Um, so it's Vance versus Tim Waltz. Now,
It is.
from what I understand, this sort of thing doesn't usually affect anything. Like
Yeah.
the presidential debates, or sorry, the presidential election is not decided on the VP debates generally. You know what I mean? So this is just more for fun, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's like barely decided on by the presidential debates. Those
Yeah.
tend to have like a 2 week effect that usually normalizes. So yeah, VP debates, even less impactful, and yet many times more impactful than any kind of internet debate that I would typically follow. So certainly worth tuning into.
Oh, Arch did appear somewhere. Where is he? There he is.
Well, you dragged him in. I am going to be right back. I'm going to get some water.
Sounds good. Oh, where'd he go? Oh, there he is. Okay. Hello, Arch.
Hello, Dev.
How are you doing?
I am doing very well.
So you decided to not stream this time, eh?
Yes.
Oh. Well, I guess I appreciate the extra bump, but you didn't have to.
Dev.
Hmm?
We don't always do things because we have to, Dev. Sometimes we do things because it's the right thing.
Arch, you made it.
I did, Taptash. Hello.
Hello. Good to hear your sonorous voice.
It is always good to hear my voice. It is true.
Okay, let's see here. I'm just going to quickly set this up. Okay, this should be good. This looks good. So I am streaming it to you guys if you guys just want to watch what I'm watching. Here, I'll unmute it. Can you guys hear this?
But in essence, we've had some surprises.
Yes.
The intensification of the
Yes.
situation.
So would you rather
Amazing.
would you rather just watch it through Discord, or would you rather try to like all stay synced like last time?
It's probably easier to just do it through a Discord, probably.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that too. I invited Lumi as well, but I think Lumi's doing her own stream tonight because she's not. Yeah, she's not primarily a politics streamer. She does video games.
Traitor, Lum Lum. Attack.
Attack, Lumi.
Yes.
Okay, let's see here.
I wonder, okay, because this is really bad timing for Waltz right here, because Iran just launched a massive attack on Israel, and if you want any better demonstration of how weak they view the current regime, that's it.
Is what the Israel versus the whole Middle East thing?
Oh, have you not seen this, Dev?
I've seen that there was Israel versus Lebanon for a bit, but I didn't get to catch the whole story.
Oh, no. Iran has launched a massive missile attack on Israel.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, it's going hard right now.
Is it how is the Iron Dome holding up?
Not as well as it should have, but we don't know for sure yet. Israel currently claims no casualties, but how true that is, we'll have to wait and see.
Oh, $2 right at the start from Ballcraft. The adults are back in the room. Thanks, buddy. Anyway, Arch, if you don't mind shilling to your audience that that your appearance is going to be a dev exclusive this time. I want to see him re. Ha 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 ha.
I'll tweet it out. But yeah, it's full-fledged, and Israel is probably preparing a mass response right now. So
Here we go.
We might be looking at a major war in the Middle East.
Well, I'm sure they'll find a way to blame it on Biden somehow. Let's see. It's the largest volley of that yield of missiles outside of active wartime. Oh, wow. See, I kind of have the opinion that this debate's going to basically be like a snooze fest because neither of these guys are particularly charismatic. They're actually both kind of weirdos, which is, endearing in its own way, but still. And also, VP debates very rarely actually change the outcome of an election, so this is going to be more like fun. Oh, here we go. They're coming in.
I think so.
Carolina and
Probably
South Carolina,
irrelevant,
and
yeah.
Florida and Georgia the next day.
And here we see the vice presidential candidates there.
Where did
Tim
Vance go?
Walz standing a lone man behind his lectern. Ed,
Oh.
give us your last thoughts as we watch here as
Yeah, Vance,
J.D. Vance
walked-
is off in the wings for the moment. Oh, there he is.
What are you doing, dude?
It's performance.
Maybe you
forgot his
performance,
keys.
performance. That seems obvious, but no faux pas. And they're looking for a viral moment.
By the way,
That's what
chat,
they'll
how's
be
the
looking
audio
for tonight.
balancing?
No handshake.
Do Arch and Taftage have
Handshake,
to
and, there you have
be
Governor
turned up
Walz appears
or
to be
something?
taking
Let me know.
some notes.
a good
J.D.
question.
Vance doing the same as our colleagues.
And they were shaking hands before the cameras came.
That's right.
Oh,
Well, we have the vice presidential debate coming up in a moment. It will
50
be moderated
seconds.
by our own Nora O'Donnell. And
Hope Vance
my
goes blood
Ohio
sports.
Senator J.D. Vance.
Full blood
Minnesota
sports.
Governor
Debate.
Tim Walz
It'd
take
be
the
so
stage.
good.
Well, they've taken the stage.
Just
so
turn it into the
stick
hippy
with
dippy.
us here and join us also
I
on our
want it.
streaming channel, CBS News 24/7.
Actually, you've been on Hippy Dippy
Exclusive
before, right,
content
Taftash?
you won't see
I was on it
anywhere
a
else.
bunch, actually.
Thank you for
Oh, yeah?
joining us.
I got invited over and over. It was pretty fun. But I haven't been back to it since it like restarted.
Yeah, I know Dylan invited me at one point, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna be good at a panel like that. You know, I can barely debate one-on-one.
It's fun, but it is a little like professional wrestling, in that like you're encouraged to like take a position and kind of play it up. So
it is not a realm for fact.
no. I would say
Tonight, with just over a
no.
month to go until Election Day, the first and only meeting between the two men who hope to become Vice President of the United States. Democratic Governor Tim Walz of
What do these
Minnesota
women
and
know
Republican
about
Senator
politics?
J.D. Vance of Ohio.
Now, this is likely the final debate of this election cycle, and voting is already underway in 20 states. CBS News polling shows this remains a race either
And some
presidential
interesting
candidate
voting,
could win.
too.
The CBS News Vice
What, are they finding
Presidential
evidence of like
debate
illegals
starts
voting
now.
or something?
Oh no, in Arizona, I think they discovered about 250,000 incorrect votes.
Oh wow. If you have info on that, you should always send it to me. I want to see.
Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States.
You don't pay me enough to go
This is a
dig into things.
CBS News special, live from CBS News headquarters in New York. America Decides, the vice presidential debate.
So apparently there was like some crazy protest
Good evening,
outside of
I'm
this
Nora
debate
O'Donnell,
hall.
and thank you for joining us
Before
for
this
tonight's
started.
CBS News Vice Presidential Debate. We want to
Maybe we can
welcome
look
our
at it on
viewers
the break.
on CBS, on other networks here in the U.S. and around the world. We
Wonder
have
if
a
there's closed
consequential night ahead, and our focus is the issues that matter to you,
not inclusive.
the voter. Let's introduce the candidates. Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Ohio's Republican Senator J.D. Vance tonight meeting for the first time.
I'm Margaret
Okay.
Brennan. In order to have a thoughtful and civil debate, these are the rules that both campaigns have agreed to. Questions
missed
will
the
be
handshake, but
directed
at least it
at
was
one
there.
candidate, who will have 2 minutes to respond. The other candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for rebuttal. Then each candidate will get another minute to make further points, with an additional 1 minute each at the discretion of the moderator. The primary role of the moderators is to facilitate the debate between the candidates, enforce the rules, and provide the candidates with the opportunity
And occasionally
to
fact check.
claims made by each other.
CBS News reserves the right to mute the candidates' microphones to maintain decorum. We have not shared the questions or topics with the campaigns. The stage
But not
is
muted
set.
by default.
Governor, Senator, thank you for joining us.
We
The
have
layout,
not
the
shared
blood
the
sports.
questions.
Tonight, our country is facing
Think they get
several
caught sharing
unfolding
it again like
crises.
last
The Middle
time?
East is on the brink of war. Americans are suffering from the catastrophic impact of Hurricane Helene. And now a labor strike as 25,000 dock workers
A labor
from Maine
strike
to
is
Texas
crazy.
are picketing.
Yeah,
We're
the
gonna
dock
begin
workers
tonight
decided to
with
get a
the
raise
Middle
again.
East. Margaret.
That just happened
Thank
like
you,
today,
Nora.
didn't it?
Earlier today, Iran launched its largest attack yet on Israel, but
There
that
we go.
attack failed, thanks to joint U.S. and Israeli defensive action. President Biden has
Did it
deployed
fail?
more
I
than
think we're
40,000
getting a
U.S.
little bit early
military
now.
personnel and assets to that region over the past year to try to prevent a regional war. Iran is weakened.
Yeah, and that's worked out real well.
But the U.S. still considers it the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and it has drastically reduced the time it would take to develop a nuclear weapon. It is down now to 1 or 2 weeks' time. Governor Walz, if you were the final voice in the Situation Room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran?
It wouldn't be
You have 2
preemptive
minutes.
This is such a
point.
spicy question.
Joining home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Iran,
I think it's the wrong number.
Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
Don't bumble, Walls. Oh
The
no.
expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental
seems
necessity for
nervous.
the United States to have
He
the
does,
steady
yeah.
leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago. A nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them,
he's getting redder as he goes on.
Trump said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance.
He also hasn't answered the question yet.
Out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together. Understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together,
when you start to see engaging with the enemy to prevent them from attacking, that is an error.
We will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator
Take a
Vance,
drink, dude.
the same
Holy
question.
shit.
Would you support
That was not an
or
answer.
oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on
Yeah,
Iran?
not even
You have 2 minutes.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working-class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother
Buy my book,
required
Hillbilly
Social
LG.
Security help to raise me, and she raised me in part because my own mother
Which, to be
struggled
fair,
with
is not a
addiction
bad
for a
book.
big chunk of my early life.
I've read it.
I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here
This probably
asking to be your
plays
vice
well.
president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House,
Yeah, they
the
should have
American
had
dream
like
is going to be
intros for
attainable
each
once
of them
again.
before.
Now, to answer
Yeah.
this particular
Question.
question, we have to remember that as much as
Well,
Governor Waltz just
that's the
accused
third
Donald
time he's
Trump of being
mentioned
an agent of
answering the
chaos,
question without
Donald
answering the
Trump
question.
actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
I can see like some
Thank you, Senator.
right-wingers being like,
Governor
oh no, this guy's
Walz, do you
pro-Israel
care to
too,
respond to
no!
any of the allegations?
Well, look,
That was
I mean,
a
of
sort of
course.
kind of
You'll
answer.
sometimes hear
It's going to be
revisionist
like
history,
a
but when
who can
Donald
be
Trump
more
was in office, it was
pro-Israel
Donald
debate.
Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And when Iranian missiles did fall near U.S. troops and they received traumatic brain injuries, Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies understand that Donald Trump is fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him. Steady leadership like you witnessed today, like you witnessed in April. Both Iranian attacks were repelled. Our coalition is strong, and we need the steady leadership that Kamala Harris is providing.
Senator Vance, the U.S. did have a diplomatic deal with Iran to temporarily pause parts of its nuclear program, and President Trump did exit that deal. He recently said, just 5 days ago, the U.S. must now make a diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible. Did he make a mistake? You have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure. Now, we talk about what the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now, and you can't ignore
Waltz, you're gonna
October
cry?
the 7th, which I appreciate
What the
Governor
fuck?
Waltz bringing up.
He's like,
But
that answer
when
was
did
too
Iran
good.
and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was
God,
during
he
the
is. Holy
administration
fuck.
of Kamala Harris. So Governor Waltz can criticize
Well, this
Donald
is
Trump's
okay.
tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy and peace through strength
That
is how you
face
bring
is
stability
not
back to a
good.
very
No,
broken
dude.
world. Donald Trump has already done
He's
it
like a
once
weeping
before.
tomato.
Ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to.
To be fair, Waltz
Laura?
looks like a
Margaret,
not
thank
Waltz.
you.
Vance
Let's
looks
turn
like a
now to
bobblehead, but
Hurricane
still.
Helene. The storm could become one of the deadliest on record. More than 160 people are dead and hundreds more are missing. Scientists say climate change makes these hurricanes larger, stronger, and more deadly because of the historic rainfall. Senator Vance, according to CBS News polling, 7 in 10 Americans,
Democrats control the
and more
weather,
than
guys.
60%
They sent the
of
hurricane to
Republicans
attack
under the
Florida.
age of 45 favor the
My
U.S.
God,
taking
guys,
steps to try
the
and
water's
reduce
risen
climate
again.
change.
This time,
Senator,
like
what
last year,
responsibility
and the year before,
would the Trump administration
and the year
have
before.
to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first
What
of
will
all,
your
let's
government
start
do to
with
control the
hurricane,
weather?
Because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just saw today, actually, a photograph of 2 grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child, and it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Waltz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible, and then, of course, afterwards, to help the people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I love. Some of them I know very personally in Appalachia, all across the Southeast. They need their government to do their job, and I commit that when Donald Trump is president again, the government will put the citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster. Now, Nora, you asked about climate change. I think this is a very important issue. Look, a lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true, just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science. Let's just say that's true.
Weird
If you believe
Okay.
that, what would you
Where
want
is
to
he
do?
going with
The
this?
answer is that you'd want to reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America because we're the
Correct.
cleanest economy in the entire world.
Okay.
What have Kamala
Interesting.
Harris's policies
I don't know
actually
about
led
that
to?
last one there,
more
but
energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas.
But yeah, this is
more
absolutely
doing
correct. The
business
more
in some of the
production you
dirtiest
have in
parts of
China, the
entire
dirtier
world.
it's gonna
When I say
be.
that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're doing per unit of economic output. So if we actually care about getting cleaner air and cleaner water, the best thing to do is to double down and invest in American workers and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
Governor Walz, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, we got close to an agreement because all those things are happening. Look, first of all, it is a horrific tragedy with this hurricane, and my heart goes out to the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors as we work together on these emergency managements. Governors know no partisanship. They work together. So all of the governors and the emergency responders are on the ground. Those happen on the front end. The federal government comes in, makes sure they're there that we recover, but we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that they're staying there, staying focused. Now, look, coming back to the climate change issue, there's no doubt this thing roared onto the scene faster and stronger than anything we've seen. Senator Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in. What we've seen out of the Harris administration now, the Biden-Harris administration, is we've seen this investment. We've seen massive investments, the biggest in global history that we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act, has created jobs all across the country. 2,000 in Jeffersonville, Ohio, taking the EV technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs.
Didn't it turn out that like 800,000 of those jobs were
solar manufacturing
not actually
plant
there?
in North America sits in Minnesota.
I don't know.
But my farmers know climate change is real. They've seen 500-year
That'd be a
drought,
good thing to
500-year
check on.
floods back to back. But what they're doing is adapting, and this has allowed them to tell me, look, I harvest corn, I harvest soybean, and I harvest wind. We are producing more natural gas and more oil at any time than we ever have. We're also producing more clean energy. So the solution for us is to continue to move forward that climate change is real. Reducing our impact is absolutely critical, but this is not a false choice. You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country. That's exactly what this administration has done. We are seeing us becoming an energy superpower for the future, not just the current. And that's what absolutely makes sense. And then we start thinking about how do we mitigate these disasters.
Yeah,
Thank you.
really
Senator, I want to give you an opportunity to respond there. The governor mentioned that President Trump has called climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
Well, look, what the president has said is that if the Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris and her leadership, if they really believe that climate change is serious, what they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies. Now, something Governor Walz said I think is important to touch upon, because when we talk about clean energy, I think that's a slogan.
This is like a real debate
as
compared to the last
use
two.
Here. And I'm talking, of course, about Democratic leadership.
They're
and
actually
the
talking
real
about
issue
ideas.
is that if you're
It's kind of
spending
refreshing.
hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars of American taxpayer money on solar panels that are made in China, number one, you're going to make the economy dirtier. We should be making more of those solar panels here in the United States of America. Some of them are, Tim, but a lot of them are being made overseas in China, especially the components that go into those solar panels. So if you really want to make the environment cleaner, you've got to invest in more energy production. We haven't built a nuclear facility, I think, one in the past 40 years.
Holy fucking shit, a pro-nuclear power standpoint? Holy.
That's raised
Awesome.
energy prices and also meant that we're doing
Senator,
worse by
your
the
time
climate.
is up.
I'm
Governor,
surprised.
would
Yep.
you
No,
like to
the
respond?
debate is over. He won. Fuck it.
We're
I don't care
producing
anymore.
more natural gas than we ever have. There's no moratorium on that. We're producing more oil. But the folks know, and
He's getting
I can say it
redder.
again,
No.
These are not liberal folks. These are not folks that are Green New Deal folks. These are farmers that have been drought one year, massive flooding the next year. They understand that it makes sense. Look, our number one export cannot be topsoil from erosion from these massive storms. We saw it in Minnesota this summer. And thinking about how do we respond to that, we're thinking ahead on this. And what Kamala Harris has been able to do in Minnesota, we're starting to weatherproof some of these things. The infrastructure law that was passed allows us to think about mitigation in the future. How do we make sure that we're protecting by burying our power lines? How do we make sure that we're protecting lakefronts and things that we're seeing more and more of? But to call it a hoax and to take the oil company executives to Mar-a-Lago, say, give me money for my campaign, and I'll let you do whatever you want. We can be smarter about that, and an all-above energy policy is exactly what she's doing, creating those jobs right here.
Governor, your time is up. The overwhelming consensus among scientists is that the Earth's climate is warming at an unprecedented rate. Margaret?
Thank you, Nora. We're going to turn now to immigration. The crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border consistently ranks as one of the top issues for American voters. Senator Vance, your campaign is pledging to carry out the largest mass deportation plan in American history and to use the U.S. military to do so. Could you be more specific about exactly how this will work? For example,
gonna shoot
would
them
you
all,
deport
Tari.
parents
All of
who
them.
have entered the
One
U.S.
by one.
illegally and
Jesus.
separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil? You have 2 minutes.
So first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That has opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I had a mother who struggled with opioid addiction and has gotten clean. I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations, And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations on those folks. And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret,
Every
is you
time
asked
he
about
looks
family
up and his
separation.
eyes look
right
wet.
now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000
I feel like he's looking down his
children
notepad
that the
going like,
Department of
fuck, he's
Homeland
scoring on
Security
me
has
again.
effectively
Shit.
lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. And I'd ask my fellow Americans to remember when she came into office, she said she was going to do this. Real leadership would be saying, you know what, I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
Governor, do you care to respond to any of those specific allegations, including that the vice president is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other
That chick
things?
is arguing
The
more
drug mule's
for
not
Harris
true, but I
than
will
his
say about
than
this
her
fentanyl, 'cause
VPs.
This is the crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history. 30% decrease in Ohio, but there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration.
We
Kamala
pumped the
Harris was
numbers up
Attorney
so
General
high,
of the largest
they
state of
dropped
the border
down when
state
they
in
all
California.
died.
She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to
That's
solve
actually
this.
true. Cop
And
Mala
that
has a
is
record
the
on
United
this.
States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from Oklahoma,
talking
James
point is, like,
Lankford.
not
I know
good.
he's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents, detection for drugs, DOJ money to speed up these the adjudications on this, just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him
This
a
is
campaign
true,
issue.
but the
It
fact
gives
they've
him
talked
to-
about it now
what
for
would Donald
9
Trump
months just
talk
makes it
about
sound
if
like
we
sour
actually did
grapes.
some of these things, and they need to be done.
Yeah, and it's also, like,
by the
obviously more
legislature. You can't just
complicated
do this through the
than
executive
he's letting
branch.
on.
So look, we have the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do this, and he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again,
Yeah,
9
that's a
years
good
after he came down that escalator,
argument.
dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do.
Oh.
As far as the deportation plan, at one
Really?
point,
You want to talk
Senator
about
Vance said it
dehumanizing
was so
people?
unworkable to be laughable.
I saw a massive
So
naked
that's where
Trump
we're at.
statue
Pass the
hanging
bill,
by
she'll
the
sign it.
fucking Las
Governor, your
Vegas
time is up.
highway a little while ago.
Senator, the question was, will you separate parents from their children, even if their kids are U.S. citizens? You have 1 minute.
Fuck
Margaret,
yeah.
My point is that we already have massive child separations thanks
I
to
don't know what
Kamala
that one
Harris's
hurts,
open
but
border.
okay.
And I didn't accuse
No.
Kamala Harris
You
of
separate
inviting
them.
drug
You
mules.
stuff in your
She
face.
enabled the Mexican drug
Yes.
cartels to operate freely in this country.
You
and
separate
we know
them,
that they use
you ship
children
them
as drug
back, and if
mules,
they're
and it is a
actually their
disgrace,
parents,
and it has
they
to
can
stop.
apply for
Look,
a
I think what
family
Tim said just
reunion
doesn't
like
pass the
normal
smell
people.
test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months
the Democrats
before,
are very
she
weak on
says that
this
somehow
because in
she got
2020
religion
they were
and cared a lot
full-on
about a piece of
actually, like, open
legislation.
borders, and they
the
gotta walk it all
only
back. It doesn't
thing
look
that
good.
she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president
Senator,
again.
Now,
your
granted,
time is up.
neither
Governor,
answered the fucking question
what
again.
about
Yeah.
our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
Look, we fix this issue with a bill that is necessary. But the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this. And Senator Vance,
how is supporting them not solving the problem?
Talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield.
Okay.
The Republican governor.
That's true, but it's not answering the question.
It's not true. Don't do it. There's
They're eating the dogs there.
There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Langford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue.
Like rolls his eyes.
The consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
Tim,
Governor, your time is up. Senator, I'll give you 1 minute, but let me just ask you the question first. The governor has made the point, and I think as a sitting lawmaker, you know that Congress controls the purse strings and any funding. So you have said repeatedly that Donald Trump would, through executive action, solve this. Do you disagree that Congress controls the purse strings and would need to support many of the changes that you would actually want to implement? You have 1 minute.
Look, Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern border more than our borders are. Kamala Harris has been. And it's actually heartbreaking because the Border Patrol agents, they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources would help, but most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say, if you try to come across the border illegally, you've got to stay in Mexico, you've got to go back through proper channels. Now, Governor Walz brought up the community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, well, it is law enforcement that asked for the bill. They helped craft it. They're the ones that supported it.
We're not talking about that bill anymore. We've moved past that now.
Continuing to bring this up, of not dealing with it, of blaming migrants for everything. On housing, we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable. But it becomes a blame.
It's not the cause of housing pricing
this
either.
bill also gives the money necessary to adjudicate. I agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done. This bill gets it done in 90 days. Then you start to make a difference in this, and you start to adhere to what we know, American principles.
You've tripled the speed at which asylum seekers can become illegal.
To the least amongst us, you do unto me. I think that's true of most Americans. They
or to be rejected.
Want order
to it. That's in there
this
as well.
bill does it. It's funded.
Yeah, Dev, I'm sure the Democrats will reject a whole lot of voters.
About how we treat other people.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who
we have long since passed the point of, oh, their dignity. No.
Nora,
chick.
Senator, we have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn now to the economy. Thank you.
Margaret, the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called
eating the
CBP
dogs and cats.
where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status
his way in there, dude.
at the wave
that was
of
impressive.
That was an alpha move, yeah.
I did not expect that to work.
Coming in, applying for a green card, and waiting for
Hello
10
there,
years.
third debater.
Senator.
If you're going to debate, I'm going to debate you.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
We have so much on the book since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The CBP app has not been on the books since 1990.
Oh, he's muted, and now they're laughing.
The audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process.
Keep going.
Nora.
Thank you, Margaret. The economy is
they
a
outgirl
top
Boston in
concern
the end,
for
guys.
voters.
Rip.
Each of your campaigns has released an economic plan, so let's talk about the specifics. Governor Walz, Vice President Harris unveiled a plan that includes billions in tax credits for manufacturing,
walk over,
housing,
take
and
their
a renewed
microphone.
child tax credit. The Wharton School says your proposals will increase the nation's deficit by $1.2 trillion. How would you pay for that without ballooning the deficit? Governor, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. And Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from. We both grew up in that. We understand. So those of you out there listening tonight, you're hearing a lot of stuff back and forth, and it's good. It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me? The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you in a house. A house is much more than just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where you're at. And then making sure that the things you buy every day, whether they be prescription drugs or other things, that there's fairness in that. Look, the $35 insulin is a good thing, but it costs $5 to make insulin. They were charging $800 before this law went into effect. As far as the housing goes, I've seen it in Minnesota. 12% more houses in Minneapolis, prices went down on rent 4%. It's working. And then making sure tax cuts go to the middle class. $6,000 child tax credit, we have one in Minnesota, reduces childhood poverty by 1/3. We save money in the long run, and we do the right thing for families. And then getting businesses off the ground. The law as it stands right now is $5,000 tax credit for small business, increasing that to $50,000. Now, this is a philosophical difference between us. Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give you this. He kept it. He took folks to Mar-a-Lago, said, you're rich as hell, I'm going to give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to
I just looked this up, by the way.
3
million new homes.
$8 trillion increase
The number
in the
of
national
births
debt,
in the
largest
U.S.
ever.
last time
Now
recorded
he's
was
proposing
3.6.
20%
So his plan
consumption or
wouldn't
sales
even
tax
keep
on
up
everything we
with
bring in.
births of
Everyone
naturalized
agrees, including
Americans.
businesses, it would
Never
be
mind
destabilizing
immigration.
It would increase inflation and potentially lead to a recession. Look, this is simple for you. Where are we going? Kamala Harris has said to do the things she wants to do.
Though?
We'll just ask the wealthiest to pay their fair
It's
share.
also all about
When you do
supply
that,
and
our
demand.
system works best.
I think you're getting
More
at the right
people are
thing, Arch.
participating in
It's
it,
just like
and
you
folks
just need
have
more
the things that
houses
they
and
need.
Senator, I want to give you a moment to respond on that. But similarly, the
need
Wharton
more
School has
houses.
done an
Or
analysis
reduce
of the
demand by not
Trump
having so many
plan
immigrants. Yeah, one
and
of the
says
two.
it
Or
would
both.
increase the nation's
by
deficit.
Yeah, but
deporting them.
immigrants also like help to
trillion. My question is the same
contribute
for
to the
you.
economy and
How do you
build
pay
homes
for all
and
that
stuff. So.
without
Legal
ballooning
ones, yeah.
the deficit?
Ooh,
I'll give you 2 minutes.
slave gangs.
Well,
I like
first
your
of all,
thinking.
You're going to hear a
Thank
lot
you.
from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer. A lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do, and some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it. Because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies, and what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%, open the American southern border and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If
Both
Kamala
Trump and
Harris
Biden
has
can
such
be
great
blamed for the
plans
inflation
for how to
stuff.
address middle-class problems,
yeah,
then she ought to
100%.
do them now. Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense and they don't have wisdom. Because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald Trump's economic plan doesn't make sense, I say look at the record. He delivered rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts. But if you look at what was so different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even from previous Republican tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay to middle-class and working-class Americans. It was passed in 2017, and you saw an American economic boom unlike we've seen in a generation in this country. That is a record that I'm proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills. It's going to stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
Governor, do you want to respond to that? What has Kamala Harris done
The
for the
thing
middle
is,
class?
I think
Kamala
Trump and
Harris's
Vance
day
actually
one
disagree on a
was
lot of
Donald
things.
Trump's failure on COVID that led to the collapse of our economy. We were already before COVID in a manufacturing recession, but 10 million people out of work, largest percentage since the Great Depression. 9 million jobs closed on that. That was day one. Whether it was the Infrastructure Act or other things we moved. Now, you made a question about experts, said this. I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're going to be president, you don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not
My
Donald
pro
Trump.
tip.
And the same thing goes with this.
Based.
And I ask you
The pro
out there,
expert.
teachers, nurses,
he's a
truck
gamer,
drivers,
actually. I
whatever,
don't know if you know.
How is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald
plays
Trump
video
hasn't paid
games.
any federal tax in the last
Whoa.
15 years? And the
I
last
can
year
raid
as
with him,
president.
wow.
That's what's wrong with the system.
Can't wait.
There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that. We're just asking for fairness in it.
He's gave
and
him
that's
a
all you
massive
want.
layup there if he takes it.
Governor,
The
you say
reason why
trust
Donald
the
Trump didn't pay
experts,
taxes
but those same
is because he
experts for
didn't
40
take
years said that if we
wages
shipped our
as a
manufacturing
president.
base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. And for the first time in a generation, Donald Trump had the wisdom and the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2. And I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put in the bodies of our children are manufactured by nations that hate us. This has to stop. And we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, your time is up. Governor Walz, can you address that? I mean, voters say they trust Donald Trump on the economy more. Why?
Senator
you're
Walz,
listening tonight
please
and
defend
you want
yourself.
Billionaires to get tax cuts. You heard what the numbers were. Look.
This is
I'm
like
a union
actual
guy
mega
on
communism
this.
here. by
I'm
the way,
not a guy
guys.
who wanted
like,
to ship things overseas, but I
Vance is like a
understand that, look,
proletarian
we
at
produce
this point, the
soybeans
way
and
he's
corn.
speaking.
We need to have fair trading partners. That's something that we
Yeah.
believe in. I think
There's a
the
lot to
thing
dig
that
in on this,
most
but yeah,
concerns me on this is
it's very
Donald
interested in
Trump was the guy
redistribution.
who created the largest trade deficit in American history with China. So the rhetoric is good. Much of what the senator said right there, I'm in agreement with him on this. I watched it happen too. I watched it to my communities, and we talked about that. But we had people undercutting the right to collectively bargain. We had right to work states made it more difficult. We had companies that were willing to ship it over, and we saw people profit. Folks that are venture capital in some cases, putting money into companies that were overseas. We're in agreement that we bring those home. The issue is Donald Trump is talking about it. Kamala Harris has a record, 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So if you notice, what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics
that's a
show
gross
that
generalization.
he did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here, because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did.
That deer in the headlights look on his face. Oh my
Kamala
God.
Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
I hope we have a conversation on health care then.
Senator, Governor.
Please.
Thank you. Margaret?
We have a lot to get to ahead, gentlemen, on many topics. But right now, I want to talk about personal qualifications. The vice president is often the last voice the president hears before making consequential decisions. We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and the folks out there didn't get at the top of this. Look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and
China
learn.
a lot.
Now look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but
If
I've
you
not
were
been
actually
perfect.
there, you could
And I'm
just
a
say, yeah, I
knucklehead
was
at
there, they
times,
got it
but
wrong.
it's always been about that.
That's all you gotta
Those
say.
same people elected me to Congress.
Or he could say,
I think he was
yeah, I
not
lied
there
about that.
And in Congress, I
Or
was
just
one
like,
of the
oh, I
most bipartisan
misspoke.
people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my
Sometimes
life,
I just
learned a lot
lie,
about
guys.
China. I hear the critiques of this.
Yes.
I would make the case
I just
that
stumbled over
Donald
my
Trump should
words.
have come on
That's all you
one of
gotta
those
say.
trips with us. I
Oh my
guarantee
God.
you he wouldn't be
How
praising
he's
Xi
fumbling
Jinping
this so
about
hard.
COVID. And I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community. And then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier,
no,
or was being a good
dude.
member of Congress,
Vance has
those are
to
the
come
things
back
that
and
I
be
think
like,
are the
"So you
values that
lied."
people care about.
Yeah.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests, went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed
But
to
you
be
weren't
in
actually at
governance.
the square when Tank Man.
Thank you, Governor.
Okay.
Senator Vance,
Right, which
in
is-
2016, you called your running mate
course.
Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you've been asked many times, and you've said you regret those comments and explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. But the Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism. You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your
Thanks for the
policy
raid,
stances to
Rosa.
align with his. If you become vice president, why should
Post feet.
Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump
Lumi
the
likes it.
advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and what changed. Now, you pointed out to messages from 2020. Margaret, I've been extremely consistent that I think there were a lot of things that we could have done better in the Trump administration the first round if Congress was doing its job. I strongly believe, and I've been a United States senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society. It's not just a forum for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular, Margaret, because Tim just
there was a
accused
period
this of
there,
being a national
like,
sales
up until
tax.
COVID.
Look, the one
where
thing,
the Democrats were fucking
and,
insane about,
you're probably
like, fucking with
surprised to
Trump.
hear me
It was
praising
kinda
Joe
ridiculous.
Biden, but the one thing that Joe
Yeah.
Biden
We're
did
talking like 2017,
is he continued some of the
2018.
Trump
Yeah.
tariffs that protected American
Cheek.
manufacturing jobs. And it's
Trump
the one
derangement.
issue, the most pro-worker part of the Biden administration. It's the one issue where Kamala Harris has run away from Joe Biden's record. Think about this. If you're trying to employ slave laborers in China at $3 a day. You're going to do that and undercut the wages of American workers unless our country stands up for itself and says, you're not accessing our markets unless you're paying middle-class Americans a fair wage.
Senator, your time is up. Nora?
Thank you.
Wow.
Now to the issue of reproductive
Vance
rights.
bit the
Governor
bullet
Walz,
a lot
after Roe
better.
versus Wade
He just
was
said, "Yeah, I fucked up."
overturned, you signed a bill into law that made Minnesota one of the least restrictive states in the nation when it comes to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Yes or no? Is that what you support? I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's not what the bill says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all into motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade, 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda Zaworski would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in Texas waiting for their child at 18 weeks. She has a complication, a tear in the membrane. She needs to go in. The medical care at that point needs to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy. She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or in Kentucky, Hadley Duvall, a 12-year-old child raped and impregnated by her stepfather. Those are horrific. Now, when God asked about that, Senator Vance said 2 wrongs don't make a right. There is no right in this. So in Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade. We made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. But look, this is not where, if you don't know Amanda or a Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments. For so many of you out there listening, me included, infertility treatments are why I have a child. That's nobody else's business, but those things are being proposed. And the catch-all on this is, well, the states will decide what's right for Texas might not be right for Washington. That's not how this works. This is basic human right. We have seen maternal mortality skyrocket in Texas, outpacing many other countries in the world.
This type of conversation is why I did my video on what human rights actually are recently.
We trust women, we trust doctors.
Senator, do you want to respond to the governor's claim? Will you create a federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And, one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families to afford a home so they can afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy front just to give women more options. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions, let the individual states make their abortion policy. And I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse, and let's be honest, sometimes a very, very messy and divided country.
Governor, would you like to respond and also answer the question about restrictions?
The question got asked and Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restrictive state. Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography? There's
now
a
do
very
vaccines.
real
Come on,
chance
dude. This is like
that
a
Amber
bad
Thurman
argument.
lived in Minnesota, she would be alive
That's also
today.
true of all laws.
That's why the
All laws are
restoration of Roe
determined by
versus Wade.
geography.
When you listen
in
to
a
Vice
basic
President
way.
Harris talk about this
Why
subject,
should
and you hear me
democracy
talk about it,
determine
you hear us
anything?
talking exactly
I have
the same.
decided I have a right
Donald
to
Trump
do a
is trying
thing.
to figure out how to get the political right of this. I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said about what's happening. His running mate, though, does not, and that's the problem.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, let me ask you about that. He mentioned, it was, I think, referring to a national ban. In the past, you have supported a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks. In fact, you said if someone can't support legislation like that, quote, you are making the United States the most barbaric pro-abortion regime anywhere in the entire world. My question is, why have you changed your position?
Well, Nora, first of all, I never supported a national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022 talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not, though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But Nora, you know, one of the things that changed is in the state of Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust
I think this is
back.
probably where
And
the
that's why
Republican Party
Donald
is
Trump
going
and
to
I are
go.
committed to pursuing pro-family policies,
like
making
post-liberal
child care
camp?
more accessible,
Well,
making
just
fertility
into
treatments
like
more accessible.
a more moderate abortion position.
And that's
Because
what
a lot
real
of these
leadership
abortion
is.
bills were like incredibly rushed, which is how you get like bad situations in Texas.
No, we're not. We're pro-women. We're pro-freedom to make your own choice. We know what the implications are to not be that. Women having miscarriages, women not getting the care, physicians feeling like they may be prosecuted for providing that care. And as far as making sure that we're educating our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand that too. We know that the options need to be available, and we make that true. We also make it, we're a top 3 state for the best place to raise children. But these two things to try and say that we're pro-children, but we don't like this, or you guys are pro-abortion, that's not the case at all. We are pro-freedoms for women to make their choices, and we're going, and Kamala Harris is making the case, to make options for children more affordable, a $6,000 child tax credit, but we're not going to base that on the backs of making someone like Amber Thurman drive 600 miles to try and get health care.
Senator?
May I respond to that? First of all, Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was. And maybe you're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think, whether you're pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when
Why
they need
do
to do
women's
this. Trying to
decisions
distort the way a
triumph
law is
over
written
democracy,
to try and
Walls?
make a point, that's not
Why?
it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me. What was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given
But how?
I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget. Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
Pull the law out, guys.
There's a lot to discuss. We have to move on, and we're going to be right back with much more of the CBS News vice presidential debate in just a moment.
See, I'm pro-choice, and even that was a terrible defense of the pro-choice position. You know what I mean?
Well,
Yeah,
it's
and I
because
think-
he's not making an argument right now. He's making a feel-good point because
He's talking about
there was
rights.
the English thing that people put things into polls. There you go. Showed that one of women's biggest, almost in some cases singular political issue was abortion. So he's not speaking to policy. He's speaking to, oh, you want this one thing? Oh, I am with you. I am with you on this.
Yeah. Real quick here, just before we come back, we're on the break. I wanted to show this. So this person named Anarchy Princess on Twitter. They've been showing outside the vice presidential debate in New York City. There's large crowds on both sides, and there's fights breaking out. I'll zoom in a bit. Yeah, there's fights breaking out. People getting punched. People getting attacked. I wonder if I'm gonna find it. Oh yeah, there's like Trump supporters and crackhead Barney face off outside of CBS studios. Where's the video? Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, this is a Trump supporter who moons the Democrat crowd. Like, what are you doing, lady? Why?
She's being a woman.
Trump supporters are famously very classy, so this is shocking behavior.
Wow. So yeah, there's lots of protesting, which is what you expect. But there's, a few fights have broken out. It's getting pretty heated out there. It's kind of wild. Fun times. Oh wow.
It's a tragedy that they weren't armed.
Oh man.
We need to return to the laws of dueling.
So yeah,
No longer have an honor culture arch. It'll never happen.
Nope, not gonna happen.
We're just gonna run to the law to solve all of our issues.
Vance is doing a lot better than I thought he would. However, I can also tell that he's going against some things. He's saying some things that I know Trump's not going to do. Maybe in the future when Vance becomes leader of the party after Trump is cycled out, then maybe Vance can do them. But it seems like Trump and Vance have some significant disagreements on policy.
I think Vance is doing about as good as he can. And I'm not surprised. Vance is like a very sharp guy, but there is only so much he can say because he is ultimately bound to backing all of his running mates' positions.
Yep.
He's delivering an excellent debate performance, and it's a debate today. We're talking policy occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty good. I agree.
Yeah, with Trump versus Kamala, it was just insults. With Trump versus Biden, it was insults and also sleeping. Like, this is actually a debate.
Vance and Walz, goddamn their names. Walz is not doing terribly either. He's stumbling a bit more, but his greatest weakness is the way that the lights are set up. Every time he looks up, it looks like he's being bullied and is on the verge of tears.
Now, I mean, there was that article from back in 2001 where Walz was like, he was 35 years old at the time, and they were like interviewing people about the launch of the Sega Dreamcast. And, then 35-year-old Walz was apparently addicted to the Dreamcast, and his wife was complaining in the article that he never gives her any attention anymore because he's playing too many video games. I was like, you know what?
Holy base.
That sounds pretty based, actually.
Just like me. That's funny.
But yeah, like, I know that Vance is not the same type of politician as Trump, because Vance is like a neo-reactionary mold bug stan, And which
Well,
is, by
he's
the
got
way,
this like strong populist bent,
yeah,
which is like
yeah.
it's disappointing to me, and I think it's one of the worst parts of his position.
Presidential debate. We want to
He's
turn now to
personal friends
America's
with
gun
Mitch's
violence
Moldbug,
epidemic.
which is
The
kinda
leading
weird, but okay.
cause of death for children and teens in America is by firearms. Senator Vance, you oppose most gun legislation that Democrats claim would curb gun violence. You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s. So let me ask you, earlier this year, for the first time, the parents of a school shooter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, Nora, on that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust local law enforcement and local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father of 3 beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this. The question is just, how do we actually do it? Now, here's something that really bothers me and worries me about this epidemic of violence. The gross majority, close to 90% in some of the statistics I've seen, of the gun violence in this country is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartel. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago. But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is, and I say this not loving the answer, because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea that we can magically wave a wand and take guns out of the hands of bad guys, it just doesn't fit with recent experience. So we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions for how to do that.
Governor,
schools.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old, and
I'm back.
And he witnessed a shooting in a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave
ginger
you.
cookies.
As a member of Congress, I sat in my office,
my parents back in my
surrounded
hometown.
by dozens of the San Diego parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter.
Vance suggested we turn all schools in America into Festungs.
We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out. In Minnesota, we've enacted enhanced red flag laws, enhanced background checks, and we can start to get data. But here's the problem. If we really want to solve this, we've got folks that won't allow research to be even done on gun violence. And this idea that we should just live with it, here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that worked. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They don't have this happen, even though they have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference.
That's because
it's not infringing
even
on
the Mongolians are racially superior to you Americans.
It just doesn't make any sense. Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue. She knows that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there, do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort? Is that what we have to go when we know there's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills? They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix. These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms, and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
Tim, first of all,
laws
I didn't
just
know
need
that your
to be
17-year-old
enforced.
witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's
appreciate
doing
you
okay.
saying so.
Christ have mercy. It is awful. And I appreciate what Tim said, actually, about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly, weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland. Is, okay, first of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse, or mental health substance abuse. We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety.
Is he bringing up 1350s?
We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason why we have such a bad gun violence problem, but I do think it's a big piece of it. Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad guys, put them away, and take gun offenders off the streets. I think there's a whole host of things that we can do here, but I do think at our schools we've got to talk about more security.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it's only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice. That's not where we live today. And several things I want to mention on this is, talking about cities and where it's at, the number one where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves. And so we have, and we should look at all of the issues, making sure folks have health care and all that, but I want to be very careful. This idea of stigmatizing mental health, just because you have a mental health issue doesn't mean you're violent. And I think what we end up doing
No,
is
but
we
it
start
means you're
looking for a
fucking
scapegoat.
crazy and should get help.
Sometimes it just is the guns.
Really not have
it's
guns.
just the guns. And there are things that you can do about it. But
Oh,
I
man.
do think that this
I
is
recall
one,
people
and I think
saying
this is a
that,
healthy
like,
conversation. I
linking
think there's a
mental health
capacity
to
to
gun
find
ownership
solutions
is
on this that
transphobic
work,
because all
protect
trans
Second
people
Amendment,
have
protect our children.
dysphoria,
That's our priority.
Gentlemen,
which is a
thank
mental
you.
health
Margaret?
That is such a
Thank you,
Twitter
Margaret. Let's turn now to the
type
top
argument.
contributor to inflation, the high cost of housing and rent. There's a shortage of more than 4 million homes in the United States, and that contributes to the high housing prices. Governor Walz, the Harris campaign promises a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and a $10,000 tax credit. They also promise to build 3 million new homes.
Yeah, this
Where
is
are you
the
building these
subsidizing
homes,
demand
and
problem,
won't
right?
handing out
That's
that
all
kind
I
of
think
money
about.
just drive
Yeah,
up
I've
prices?
seen the meme. I've
No,
seen
it's
the
not
meme of
handing out.
subsidizing
We have-
demand.
First, let me say this issue of housing, and I think those
Just
of you
cut
listening
red
on this,
tape,
the problem
please.
we've had is
We're
that
begging.
we've got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity. It can be
I
bought
saw,
up,
like, a-
it can be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks living in those
California
houses.
program
Those of you
spent,
listening
like,
tonight, that house is a big
millions
deal.
of
I
dollars
bought
to
and
buy,
owned
like,
one
10
house in
homes.
my life. My mom still
God,
lives in the
yeah.
house where I
$100 million
was.
some
And when
shit,
I think
'cause
of a
they're just
house,
subsidizing demand.
I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight
God,
mass
yeah.
where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program that the Vice President is pushing forward and bringing a new way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing. It starts to make it easier. We cut some of the red tape. Local folks, look, we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, certainly for me, using the GI Bill was one thing.
I found it,
but
guys.
a veteran's home loan, the big thing about a veteran's home
I just
loan
need to
is
subsidize
you don't
demand.
have to pay the down payment. Those are things that make it there. Now, look, you're going to pay it back, and you're going to pay your mortgage. Those are things that we know in the long run, the appreciated value, the generational wealth that's created from it. And I will give Minneapolis an example. Minneapolis is the one city where we've seen the lowest inflation rates. We've seen a 12% increase in stock because we've put some of these things in, and we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance. We get it back from people because here's what we know. People with stable housing end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to get to school. All of those things in the long run end up saving our money. And that's the thing that I think we should be able to find some common ground in, but we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case that's happening in many cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally affordable housing, but we can make sure that the government's there to help kickstart it, create that create that
Wipe your lips,
base.
dude. There's something
Governor,
weird on
your
your lip.
time is up.
You gotta
Senator
clean it up.
Vance,
That looks really weird.
as far as your campaign's position,
Also,
the promise
listen,
is
you
to
need, like,
seize
big
federal
apartment
lands
blocks
to
for the
build
poors.
homes, remove
Americans don't like it, but you
regulation,
need 'em.
provide tax breaks, and cut back on immigration, which you say.
Yeah,
Build
our
them in
housing
together.
policy is insane.
Where are you going to build all the new homes
The
you're
zoning is
promising,
just
and
awful.
what part of any of this
I
plan
don't know
will
if you're still
provide
working on your
immediate
anti-democracy
relief?
essay,
You have 2 minutes.
but
Well, first of all,
I've come to the
Tim
conclusion
just
that
said something that
NIMBYism
I
is
agree with. We don't
uniquely
want to
Democratic
blame
problem.
immigrants for higher housing prices, but
Yeah,
we do want to blame
absolutely.
Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this
Pass the
country,
bill.
which does drive up costs, Tim. 25 million illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one of the most significant drivers of home prices in the country. It's why we have massive increases
really
in
don't
home
think that's
prices
true.
that have
I think it's, like,
happened
less
right
than
alongside
5%.
massive increases in illegal
price increases are
alien
due to that.
populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with. But the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people already gave her, not sit around and campaign and do nothing while Americans find the American dream of homeownership completely unaffordable. Now, you asked,
This
Margaret,
point
what
has
would
been repeated a lot, but the problem
immediately
is it's
change
a good
the
point.
equation for American citizens?
Like, hey, I'm going to do this.
If you lower
Cool, do it.
energy prices, as Donald Trump says, drill, baby, drill,
Yeah.
one of the biggest drivers of housing
I do
costs
think it's
aside
pretty
from illegal
effective.
immigration is, think about it. If a truck driver's paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build the house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief for American citizens. Not, by
Have
the way,
more
just in
energy at
housing,
home,
but in a whole
things will
host of
get
other
cheaper.
economic goods too.
Senator Vance, you still have 23 seconds there. Do you want to answer?
Wrong on tariffs again.
Governor, we
Bad
will get
Deb.
to you in a moment. But Senator, where are you going to seize the federal lands? Can you clarify?
Well, what Donald Trump has said is we have a lot of federal lands that aren't being used for anything. They're not being used for national park. They're not being used, and they could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, I do want to let you respond to the allegation that the vice president is letting in
Well, of course, that's not
migrants
true. And again,
that
you
it's
have the
affecting
facts. I
housing
guess we
prices.
agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That look, crossings are down.
That's your
compared to when
job,
Donald
yes,
Trump
not
left
the
office.
moderators.
But it's,
You must
again,
fact check 'em.
Blaming and not trying to find
The
solutions.
moderators
I
will
was
still
gonna
tell
ask
you
on this
to
question,
fact check.
Are we
but,
going to drill and build houses in the same federal land? And I think when people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of federal lands. I know in the western part of the countries we do. There's not a lot of federal lands in and around Minneapolis, for example. So the issue is I don't understand the federal lands issue unless we see this, and I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks and our federal lands. Look, Minnesota, we protect these things. We've got about 20% of the world's fresh water. These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong to all of us. But again, this is when you view housing and you view these things as commodities. Like, there's a chance to make money here. Let's take this federal land and let's sell it to people for that. I think there's better ways to do this. We've seen it in Minnesota. We're able to refurbish some of these houses. We're able to make some
Then
investments.
you're going to need
That
less
gets
people.
in. And
If
I'm
you want to
still
protect
on
vast
the
areas
fact
of
on this.
land, you're going to need fewer people
Senator
that need
Vance,
to
you said
live
you don't
there.
like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor,
Where's
your
the study?
time is up. But Senator, on that
How do
point,
immigrants
I'd like
add
for
to the
you
cost of
clarify,
housing?
There are many
Gee,
contributing factors
I don't fucking
to
know,
high
buddy.
housing costs. What evidence do you have that migrants
Are we
part of
fucking
this
tight?
problem?
Well, there's
Are
a
we
Federal
taking
Reserve
this
study
point
that we'll have to
seriously?
share after the debate. We'll put it up on social media, actually, that really drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher
Motherfucker,
housing
more
prices. Now,
people,
of course,
fewer houses, higher
that's
price
not
of
the
housing.
entire driver
Jesus.
of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources resources, makes it harder to build things, and wants to throw people in jail for not doing everything exactly as Kamala Harris says they have to do. And what that means is that you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes. I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity. But the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry. I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, that in some cases, many of those are local, many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations? Because the vice president's not responsible for those. Congress writes those.
Governor, thank you. Gentlemen, we have a lot
You
to
may
get to.
not
You're passionate
respond.
about the housing crisis, I can tell. But Nora?
Thank you. One of the top problems facing Americans is the high cost of health care. Senator Vance, at the last presidential debate, former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care Act. In
6 hours
response,
long
he
and actually
said,
drilled down on
I
each of
have
these.
concepts of a plan. Since then, Senator, you've talked about changing how
I don't want
chronically
it
ill
to be 6
Americans
hours
get
long,
health
Deb.
insurance. Can you explain
This is way
how
less
that would
interesting
work?
than the other
And can you
debates
guarantee
because they're
that
not
Americans
yelling at
with
each other. I hate it.
pre-existing conditions
But there's
won't
real ideas
pay
here.
More. I'll give you 2 minutes.
Not
Well, of
really.
course, we're going to
The
cover
idea is,
Americans with
how do you know that
pre-existing
more
conditions.
people
In
make
fact, a lot of
houses
my
more
family
expensive?
members have gotten health care.
there's more than
I
last time.
believe,
How about that?
Members of my family actually got
That's
private
true.
health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think that, a lot of people have criticized this concepts of a plan remark. Look, it's very simple common sense. I think as Tim Walz knows from 12 years in Congress, you're not going to propose a 900-page bill standing on a debate stage. It would bore everybody to tears, and it wouldn't actually mean anything because part of this is the give and take of bipartisan negotiation. Now, when Donald Trump was actually president, and again, he has a record to be proud of, prescription drugs fell in 2018 for the first time in a very long time. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, prescription drugs are up about 7%. Under Donald Trump's entire 4 years, they were up about 1.5%. He introduced pricing transparency. Think about healthcare. You go into a hospital, you try to buy something, and nobody knows what it actually costs. That price transparency will actually give American consumers a little bit more choice and will also drive down costs. And we talked about, the reinsurance regulations.
This is absolutely true. You would not believe how fucking hard hospitals are gouged for basic shit.
But the non-chronically ill, it's not just a plan. He actually implemented some of these regulations when he was president of the United States. And I think you can make a really good argument that it salvaged Obamacare, which was doing disastrously until Donald Trump came along. And I think this is an important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have to agree with everything that President Trump has ever said or ever done. But when Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and healthcare costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care. It's not perfect, of course,
Now,
and there's
this is
so
a
much
very
more that we can
charitable
do,
interpretation,
but I think that
but
Donald Trump has
I'm actually
earned
starting
the
to think
right
that
to
his
put in place some better
anti-Trump
healthcare policies.
stance
He's
is
earned it
becoming a
because he did it
strength.
successfully the first
Because
time.
he's basically the personification of,
here's
yeah,
where
you
being
don't
an
have to
old
agree
guy
with
gives you some
everything he
history.
does, but
I
look
was
at
there
this.
at the creation
That's really
of
true.
the ACA. And the reason it was so important is I come from a major healthcare state, home of the Mayo Clinic, home to Medical Alley, 3M, Medtronic, all of those. We understand healthcare. It's why we're ranked first on affordability and accessibility and quality of healthcare. And so what I know is under Kamala Harris, more people are covered than they have before. And those of you listening, this is critical to you. Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was
Chat,
to
the Mayo
repeal
Clinic is
Obamacare.
the best hospital
On
in the
day
world.
one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill. Now, fast forward, what that means to you is you lose your pre-existing conditions. If you're sitting at home and you got asthma, too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be there. But look, this issue, and when Donald Trump said, I've got a concept of a plan, it cracked me up as a fourth grade teacher because my kids would have never given me that. But what Senator Vance just explained might be worse than a concept, because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time. What they're saying is, if you're healthy, why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do is let insurance companies pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little older, gray, got cancer, you're going to get kicked out of it. That's why the system didn't work. Kamala Harris will protect and enhance the ACA.
This
Governor,
is
thank you.
all
Senator,
insurance,
you have not yet
though,
explained how you
universally.
protect people
If this
with
is the argument for
pre-existing
universal
conditions or laid out
health
that
care,
plan.
why should there not be
currently have
universal
laws and
car
regulations
insurance, universal
right
house
now that
insurance,
protect people with
universal
pre-existing conditions?
ownership insurance?
We want to keep those
et cetera,
regulations in
et
place,
cetera.
but we also want to make the health insurance marketplace function a little bit better. Now, what Governor Walz just said is actually not true. A lot of what happened, and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight, is that a lot of young and healthy people were leaving the exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem, and he did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing conditions. But again, something that these guys do is they make a lot of claims about if Donald Trump becomes president, all of these terrible consequences are going to ensue. But in reality, Donald Trump was president. Inflation was low. Take-home pay was higher, and he saved the very program from a Democratic administration that was collapsing and would have collapsed absent his leadership. He did his job, which is govern in a bipartisan way and get results, not just complain about problems, but actually solve them.
Governor, did enrollment under the Affordable Care Act go up under the Trump administration?
It's higher now that we've seen it go up. Look, people are using it. The system works. And the question about this of young people or whatever, that's the individual mandate piece of this. And Republicans fought tooth and nail saying, well, Americans should be free to do this. Well, then what happens is...
So you think the individual mandate's a good idea?
You shrink. I think the idea of making sure the risk pool is broad enough to cover everyone, that's the only way insurance works. When it doesn't, it collapses. You are asking pre-ACA where we get people out. Look,
why is this argument not launched against all insurance?
They need to be
then?
on health care. People expect it to be there. And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we incentivize people to be in the market, when we help people who might not be able to afford it get there, and we make sure then when you get sick and old, it's there for you. Because I heard people say, well, I don't want to buy into Medicare or whatever. Good luck buying health care once you get past 70. So look, the ACA works. We can continue to do better. Kamala Harris did that. The way she made everything better was negotiating those 10 drugs on Medicare for the first time in American history.
Thank you.
I think the idea is that
I
healthcare is
apologize. We're
inelastic.
out of time. We have a number of subjects to discuss. Margaret?
Let's talk about families in America. There is a child care crisis in this country, and the United States is one of the very few developed countries in the world without a national paid leave program for new parents. Governor Walz, you've said that if Democrats win both the White House and Congress, this is a day one priority for you. How long should employers be required to pay workers while they are home taking care of their newborns? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's negotiable, and that's what Congress worked. But here's what the deal is. Americans sitting out there right now, you may work for a big company. Look, we're home in Minnesota to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. Kamala Harris knows that in California. Those companies provide paid family and medical leave. One is, I think they're moral and they think it's a good thing, but it also keeps their employees healthy. We in Minnesota passed a paid family and medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a better start, the family works better, we stay in their employers, we get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue, those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what happens if you get cancer or your child gets sick. We know what happens. You end up staying home. In some places, that means no paycheck because you've got no protection on that. This is the case of an economy that Donald Trump has set for the wealthiest amongst us. He's willing to give those tax breaks to the wealthiest. He's willing to say, bust those unions up, do whatever. What we're saying is the economy works best when it works for all of us. And so a paid family medical leave program, and I will tell you, go to the families or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as childcare on this, you have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take either our children or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family and medical leave and help with this will enhance our workforce, enhance our families, and make it easier to have the children that you want.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, do you support a national paid leave program? And if so, for how long should employers be mandated to pay their employees while they are home taking care of their newborn? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret,
as a business owner, that sounds fucking terrible.
Democrats too have worked on this issue, and I think there is a bipartisan solution here
Yeah,
because a lot of us care about this
communists.
issue. I mean, look, I
Communism
speak from
versus
this
MAGA
very
communism.
personally because I'm married to a beautiful woman who's an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator, and I'm so proud of her. But being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company. But the cultural pressure on young families and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. And I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach. I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have that support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of childcare model. Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with childcare. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to get together with families in your neighborhood to provide childcare in the way that makes the most sense. You don't get access to any of these federal monies. We want to promote choice in how we deliver family care and how we promote childcare because, look, it is unacceptable. And, you know, of course, Tim and I have been on the campaign trail a lot the past 7 or 8 weeks. And one of the biggest complaints I hear from young families is people who feel like they don't have options, like they're choosing between going to work or taking care for their kids. That is an incredible burden to put on American families. We're the only country that does it. I think we could do a heck of a lot better.
Senator, thank you. You have also said, Senator Vance, many things about the American family. The Federal Reserve says parents will spend nearly as much on child care as they do on housing each month. So I want to get your thoughts on this. President Trump recently said, as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kinds of numbers we'll be taking in. Is President Trump committed to the $5,000 per child tax credit that you have described? You have 1 minute.
Well, what President Trump said, Margaret, I just want to defend my running mate here a little bit, is that we're going to be taking in a lot of money by penalizing companies for shipping jobs overseas and penalizing countries who employ slave laborers and then ship their products back into our country and undercut the wages of American workers. It's the heart of the Donald Trump economic plan. Cut taxes for American workers and American families. Cut taxes for businesses that are hiring and building companies in the United States of America, but penalize companies and countries that are shipping jobs overseas. That's the heart of the economic proposal. And I think what President Trump is saying is that when we bring in this additional revenue with higher economic growth, we're going to be able to provide paid family leave, child care options that are viable and workable for a lot of American families.
Can you clarify how that will solve the child care shortage?
Well, because as Tim said, a lot of the child care shortage is we just don't have enough resources going into the multiple people who could be providing family care options. And we're going to have to, unfortunately, look, we're going to have to spend more money. We're going to have to induce more people to want to provide child care options for American families, because the reason it's so expensive right now is because you've got way too few people providing this very essential service.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, your ticket also has some child care tax credit proposals. Do you think Congress will agree to the $6,000 credit for newborns and $3,000 credit for children over the age of 6?
They're both better than their running mates.
Realistic?
Well, if these members of Congress are listening to anybody, I can tell you, and this is the biggest issue. Everybody listening tonight knows. I mean, I'm sure they were shocked to hear it's not that expensive. And let's be clear, whether it's $5,000 or $6,000, that pays you about 3 or 4 months. Let's be clear of where we're at on this. It's because we got out of an imbalance on this. We thought we were going to get by not paying people. I don't think Senator Vance and I are that far apart. I'm not opposed to what he's talking about on options. We've done scholarships types of things. I think we need to be open to making the case. But the issue here is, the question you asked is, you're not going to pay for it with these tariffs. That's just adding another $4,000 on the family and taking less. So not only do they not get the money to pay for that, they're $4,000 in the hole. That's Wharton School. That's his alma mater. And so I think the issue here is, if those members of Congress, I can't believe they're not. When I go to businesses, sure, they'll talk about taxes sometime, but they will lead with childcare and they will lead with housing, because we know the problem is, especially in a state like Minnesota, we need more workers because our economy's growing, but we need the workforce.
Governor, thank you. We need to move on. Nora?
Let's talk about the state of democracy, the top issue for Americans after the economy and inflation.
Vance, talk about neo-monarchism. It's time.
President Trump's campaign and others filed 62 lawsuits contesting the results. Judges, including those appointed by President Trump and other Republican presidents, looked at the evidence and said there was no widespread fraud.
They largely just rejected them on
Of
standing.
every state in the nation,
Arch, you're wrong, and also rejecting them on standing is good anyway.
Certified the 2020 election results and sent a
You
legal
can't then
slate
say
of
they looked at the
electors to
evidence, because
Congress
they did not look at the
for
evidence.
January
They
6th.
rejected it on
Senator
standing.
Vance, you have said
That's
you
part of
would
looking at the
not
evidence,
have
Arch.
certified
This
the
is
last presidential
this is
election.
your
You would have asked the
verbal
states to
tick where you
submit
conflate
alternative
proof
electors.
and
That has been
evidence.
called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, Nora, first of all, I think that we're
I don't know,
focused on
Nora.
the future.
Does the
We need to
election
figure
look
out how to
incredibly
solve the
fucking
inflation
sus?
crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. Look, what President Trump has said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square, and that's all I've said, and that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president. Donald Trump left the White House. And now, of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration. I believe that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country, but unfortunately, it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. It's Americans casting aside lifelong friendships because of disagreements over politics. It's big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens. And it's Kamala Harris saying that rather than debate and persuade her fellow Americans, she'd like to censor people who engage in misinformation. I think that is a much bigger threat to democracy than anything that we've seen in this country in the last 4 years, in the last 40 years. Now, I'm really proud, especially given that I was raised by 2 lifelong blue-collar Democrats, to have the endorsement of Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong leaders in the Democratic coalition. And of course, they don't agree with me and Donald Trump on every issue. We don't have to agree on every issue, but we're united behind a basic American First Amendment principle that we ought to debate our differences. We ought to argue about them. We ought to try to persuade our fellow Americans. Kamala Harris is engaged in censorship at an industrial scale. She did it during COVID. She's done it over a number of other issues. And that, to me, is a much bigger threat to democracy than what Donald Trump said when he said that protesters should peacefully
mention of
protest on
censorship.
January the 6th.
Yes, nuclear power and anti-censorship.
Well,
I love this
enjoyed
man.
tonight's debate.
Make him
I think there was
president
a lot
now.
of commonality here, and I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator.
Me too, man.
There's one though that this one is troubling to me, and I say that because I think we need to tell the story. Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this. And the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot and let the boiling water go up. He was very clear. I mean, he lost this election, and he said he didn't. 140 police officers were beaten at the Capitol that day, some with the American flag. Several later died. And it wasn't just in there.
But only one of them was actually
a
killed.
Group gathered on the state Capitol grounds in St. Paul, and said, we're marching to the governor's residence and there may be casualties. The only person there was my son and his dog, who was rushed out crying by state police. That issue and Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence made the right decision. So, Senator, it was adjudicated over and over and over. I worked with kids long enough to know, and I said as a football coach, sometimes you really want to win, but the democracy is bigger than winning an election. You shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is...
Oh, don't you dare speak about the loyal opposition, you fucking pig.
Your political opponents are already laying the groundwork for people not accepting this. And a president's words matter. A president's words matter. People hear that. So
imprisoning your political opponents.
This issue of settling our differences
Excusez-moi.
Shaking
if they deserve it, Arch,
we
do
lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th, the first time in American history that a president or anyone tried to overturn a fair election and the peaceful transfer of power.
Excuse me?
Now, here we are 4 years later in the same boat.
Was that the first time in American history?
When this is over, we need to shake hands this election.
There was a civil war
and the
at one
winner
point,
needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country
apart.
apart.
That one.
Margaret?
In modern
Senator
history,
Vance, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, well, look, Tim, first of all, it's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done
and then
for
got
250
shot at.
years in this country. We are going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it. But we have to remember that for years in this country, Democrats protested the results of elections. Hillary Clinton in 2016 said that Donald Trump had the election stolen by Vladimir Putin because the Russians bought like $500,000 worth of Facebook ads. This has been going on for a long time. And if we want to say that we need to respect the results of the election, I'm on board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a problem that Republicans have had, I don't buy that.
Governor.
January 6th was not Facebook ads. And I think a revisionist history on this. Look, I don't understand how we got to this point. But the issue was that happened. Donald Trump can do it. And all of us say there's no place for this. It has massive repercussions. This idea that there's censorship to stop people from threatening to kill someone, threatening to do something, that's not censorship. Censorship is book banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought up. I just think
someone in the chat,
everyone tonight, and I'm going to thank Senator Vance.
Real quick.
I think this is the conversation they want to hear. And I think there's a lot of agreement. But this is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our
Walz is the crying
in a way
Indian
that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020
Vance, you gotta say
COVID
yes on
situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of the government.
This is a
to
fine
silence people
dodge.
from speaking their minds.
This is an
that is a
excellent
threat to democracy
dodge.
that will
It is a
long
dodge, but
outlive
it is
this
a good
present
one.
political moment. I
Yeah,
would
it
like
is a
Democrats
dodge,
and
but it's a
Republicans to both
fucking handsome
reject
one.
Censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim,
you actually can.
Theater, you guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't wear
Senator, the
masks.
governor does have the floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute to respond to you.
Yeah. Well, I don't run Facebook. What I do know is I see a candidate
You run
out there
fucking Facebook,
who
bitch. We know
refused,
you do.
And now again, and this, I'm pretty shocked by this. He lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not anything anywhere other than in Donald Trump's world. Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election, that's why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is Where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America.
That's a good question.
Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that, because of course that's what we would do. So America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your
To be
time
fair, that's
is
a good
up.
one too.
Thank you, gentlemen.
This is
We
probably
will
the
be
worst part
right back with
about
both
Donald
of
Trump.
our candidates. The CBS News Vice Presidential
The January
debate
stuff is just
continues.
January 6th.
inexcusable.
January 6th.
Yeah, well,
January 6th.
Listen, Arch, I know you
January
dis-
6th.
Arch, I know you
January
disagree.
6th.
I know you disagree, Arch. I know the entire chat copes about it, but in actuality, January 6th is by far the weakest section for the Republicans right now, because
It's really bad.
it was just a giant fucking cope stream that has not been ending for 4 fucking years. So, I
Yeah,
did
you just cannot have the sitting president actively undermining the institutions that are just like fundamental to peaceful transfer of power.
Yep.
Dev,
Yes.
in 10 years' time, when they make the movie about how the election was stolen, I will not shut up about this for a very long time.
So, just real quick, fair enough. I understand, Arch, but I think you're wrong, but fair enough. I found this. This is becoming the next reaction image, guys. It's just this picture of Vance.
But it did.
Just this is gonna be
Yeah.
memeable, I think.
I've been seeing this on Twitter too.
Yeah. Wow. It's Homelander 2.0. So, here's the situation, okay? I've heard Vance speak in other locations, other places. I'm not a fan of him. I don't like a lot of his policies, but he's doing very well here. He's doing maybe he knows to like temper some of his more radical positions because he's on a national stage now, so fair enough. Meanwhile, Walz is doing worse, but he's still not doing bad. He's doing better than Kamala did. Like, these are both more interesting and likable people than Trump and Kamala, in my opinion.
Yes, they are. I guess it's also because they have the freedom to not need to lean into the rhetoric, because the rhetoric is the most effective tool either side has at this point. These don't need to lean into that as much. They can actually, present some policy positions. I think we should
and they
just
can like
elect the VPs.
Just elect the VPs, yes.
Yeah, Vance is definitely a much stronger candidate than Trump in so many ways. And yeah, I think it helps that they can sort of give each other points where they're due. It's not quite as tense.
Yeah.
So it allows them to have a more serious conversation.
It's funny when Trump is just shitting on Biden or shitting on Kamala, and he's making memes out of it. That's entertaining, but it doesn't make for a good debate,
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, dude! Someone ran Vance through the Giga Chad filter. Okay, nice, good job.
1% fatal accident rate might make you look before you launch. If you had 1 out of 100 airplanes falling out of the sky, we'd have a public crisis.
Okay. Yeah, I knew you'd like that shot. So yeah, Walz is stumbling, and he's clearly doing worse than Vance, but he's doing worse in like a very human way, which kind of makes him like likable in a sense. He's not like a Mark Zuckerberg robot who is stumbling all over because he's too stiff. Walz just seems like a goofy old guy, and not bumbling, incompetent old the way that Biden came off, but legitimately just like your great uncle who speaks his mind, is a little bit out there, but you still invite him to the family gathering,
Which feels very much like Walz's position on the whole Democratic ticket. feels like this white guy who just like comes in and he's like, my tacos don't have spice, and I'm just a fucking bumbly old guy.
Welcome back to the CBS News Vice Presidential Debate. It is now time
like
for
a
the closing
white guy
statement.
minstrel
Senator
show.
Vance won
we
the
go.
virtual coin toss and elected to go last. So, Governor Walz, you are first. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Senator Vance. Thank you to CBS News. And most importantly, thank you to all of you. If you're still up and the folks who miss Dancing with Our Stars, I appreciate it. But look, the support of the democracy matters. It matters that you're here. And I'm as surprised as anybody of this coalition that Kamala Harris has built, from Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift, and a whole bunch of folks in between there. And they don't all agree on everything.
That's
but
a
they
lot
are
of people who have
truly
been found
optimistic
caught on
people.
camera by
They
P. Diddy.
believe in
It's
a
true.
positive future of
That's
this
remarkable.
country, and one where our politics can be better than it is. And I have to tell you, that better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead. And the idea that freedom really means something. Not the freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room, but the freedom for you to make choices about yourself. Now, look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou
Democrat
said,
is talking to me
believe him
about
when he told
freedom.
you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage, and then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road. Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm going to be careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way
Franklin
forward.
Roosevelt
She's
dragged
bringing us a
America into
politics
one of his
joy.
largest, most
She's bringing
expensively
real
devastating
solutions for the
wars.
middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that.
Was that the Second World War?
All the while asking everyone, join this movement,
Yes.
Yeah.
make your voices heard.
I'm okay
Let's
with that,
look
though.
for a new day
Based.
where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz, thank you. Senator Vance, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz.
Franklin Roosevelt was
you
also a
folks at
habitual
CBS,
liar.
And of course, the
And a man
American
who stayed
people
in
for
office
tuning in this
despite the
evening.
fact that he literally
One of
was
the issues
dying.
we didn't talk about was
He
energy.
gave his wife
and
executive
I remember
powers.
when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that, too, has gotten harder with because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance, thank you. And thank you both for participating in the only vice presidential debate of this election cycle. I'm Margaret Brennan.
And I'm Nora O'Donnell. And a reminder, there are just 35 days until Election Day. Please get out and vote. And for all of us here at CBS News, thank you and good night.
And thank you, third debate participant.
Wow.
Oh man, they're actually friendly. not just
Oh my
scoping out
God.
the stage.
Wow. The rift
The
has
first
been
and only
healed.
vice presidential debate. This
Oh.
election is now complete. It was a
Right.
cordial debate of the kind that people mostly say they want. You notice here the two candidates lingering on the stage. That's quite a difference from the
Also,
presidential
yes,
debate.
Coomer's
which
in the
was
chat.
not even sure that
Vance's
Vice
wife
President
is pretty
Harris and
hot.
Donald Trump would shake hands. It was a debate in which the line, "I appreciate what Tim said about Finland,"
Yeah,
was
she's
one of the
pretty.
many ways in which Senator Vance agreed with the governor. The governor
She wears
agreed
pants.
right back.
Means
But
she's
that's
not
the
female.
tone and
Reject.
the kind of
Wait,
theater review. of
that's
this. I'll
the
pick out
easiest way to
two,
transition, then, Arch.
issues.
Just don't wear pants.
It's actually that simple.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
Wear
Arch
pants,
comes out.
be not recognized as female.
Arch comes out with his intense pro-trans position. Okay, so let me just see. I'll just.
You cannot be female if you wear pants.
There we go. Okay, so what did you think in the end? I think you talked about this in the break, but we might as well give one final roundup before we're done.
Vance is good boy. Vote
Vance-
for Vance.
Not for Trump, for Vance.
Yeah,
No, he
Vance is
imp- he
obviously
impressed
very
me.
sharp. I agree.
I was worried that he was going to be more Moldbugian, but maybe he's moderating. We know that was Kamala during the debates, that her most important achievement was to cede all the ground she's ever cared about. Maybe he did the same, but he did so very eloquently and very effectively. So he made a good debate performance. Other
It'd be
person,
so awesome if he came out and was just like full Moldbug Orthodox type guy. That'd be
Full
amazing.
mold bug. Oh my god. Just yeah, I do actually want a dismantle democracy. I think it's bad. You know, we'll
Just
have
like,
an American emperor.
So you think about a king. I'd be so happy.
You should just think about elves and dwarves and
Yeah, the
and
dark
hobbits.
elves.
The dark elves. Oh my god, Moldbug. Fuck, man. Like
there's also one more thing I'll point out too. This is the thing. The right still has a degree of civility left. Not much. It's fading every day, but it still exists. The left has far less of it. The fact that Vance was willing to go to Vance, I hate these fucking
Vance and Walls.
Yeah. Vance and Walls. This does not do well for my Norwegian because I don't like W's and V's mixing. The fact that he was complimenting him, I guarantee you, they are going to be reading about that like mad. They are going to go, "How dare you compliment the fascist? Who are you? Are you some appeaser?"
Yeah. So Walls seems like a Democrat cut from the cloth of like the previous era of Democrats, like up until Obama, which is, by the way,
so progressive economically, though.
He is, but the way
And
he acts,
socially.
though, the way he acts,
Yeah.
He acts like a 90s or 2000s Democrat, which, by the way, those are the Democrats that I like the most, are those guys. But basically, yeah, it was. I'm looking at these two, and I'm like, I just want the two of them to be the candidate, because Vance is better than Trump by a lot, and Walls is better than Kamala by a lot. Like, what a terrible election this is, I think I'm
Actually,
I don't know if I was an American. I don't think I'd vote. I think I'd just sit this one out.
Dang. Or just cast a vote for like the libertarian candidate.
Aren't they a joke though?
No, they're real.
You're like, wait, hold on. I thought you were going on like your post-libertarian arc where you've like abandoned the libertarians for being too cucked.
I am. I've always had a complicated relationship with the Libertarian Party. And I think that I'm at this point maybe like the least libertarian that I've ever been. But they still have a place in my heart.
No, I understand. Actually, the video that I have scheduled for tomorrow is literally called "Why I'm Not a Libertarian."
What's your main
Communist.
reason?
My reason is basically Sargon's reason for not being a liberal, but on steroids. It is the values of libertarianism ultimately just baton passed to socialism.
Interesting. In what sense?
I'm just going to reveal the whole video for this tomorrow.
Okay. I'll talk about it with you once I see the video.
Sure, awesome.
Are you becoming less of Destiny and more of Sargon? Sargonian?
Destiny? Well, no, because where I disagree with Sargon is that I think libertarians are more weak to socialist subversion than liberals are. But I'll explain why.
Why can't we just ban them, Dev?
I'll explain why in the video.
I can't wait.
Also, I like the whole Destiny thing when the only person here who is actually friends with Destiny is you, Taftash.
See, I don't even think I'm friends with Destiny. I just was on its stream a few times.
Haven't you met him in real life?
I have, but it was just like very briefly. And it was not like a personal thing. He was just in Austin doing stuff. Yeah. I've met Vosh in real life. We went and got drinks, got lunch. That was fun.
How would he take your anti-democracy arc?
I don't know. It's been so long since I spoke to him. Yeah, it'd be interesting to talk to him about that. I guess he would probably be against it sort of in principle. But
yeah,
I don't know. I just think there's very strong reasons for more lefterly socialist people to not like the present state of democratic decision making.
From what I hear of whenever Vosh talks about democracy, he always just wants more democracy to the point that it's ridiculous. Like everything should be voted on. It's like, well, no, actually, some things shouldn't be voted on. You know, there is some space in human human life where there should not be the vote of everyone else regarding what you do. You know.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think the easy way to get someone like that on board is to just like point out that there are scenarios in which the popular will leads to things that they would really, really dislike, right? And I think as soon as you point out those scenarios, suddenly they lose the democratic fervor. So like an obvious one, which is on the extreme and you could work back from here, would be like, okay, say the people democratically elect a fascist dictator. Okay, well now armed resistance is probably appropriate. And it turns out that like lay people, the median voter, the less informed you are, the more you tend to support these kind of authoritarian strongman personalities. And so that seems like that's a pretty good reason to maybe be a little bit cautious just from their own values about ever widening scopes of democracy, or merely the idea that whatever the average person thinks is best. And so I think you can kind of work back from there. There's a lot of topics you can cover, like climate change, that will get them to similar positions.
Yeah. I think another strong argument against democracy is just the understanding that expertise and democracy are like two extreme ends of like a spectrum. Where basically, if you trust an expert, the reason that you would is because he knows more than you. And you are explicitly not trusting in the wisdom of the crowd. You're trusting in the wisdom of someone who is educated and knowledgeable on a topic. You would not get 100,000 people who are just randoms to tell you about a highly technical topic. You would get an expert on the topic to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, an argument against democracy is always an argument for expertise. And this is why I really like the whole mega communism or like right wing socialism thing. In terms, like, I don't like it, but like conceptually, it's an interesting idea because a lot of the rejection of expertise on the right now kind of slots into a form of right wing socialism that's probably going to become more prevalent.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And it's something that I hate. And it's something that I was seeing for so long on the left, and I hated it there. And I hated it on the right as well. And you see that economically too. Like a lot of these policies that Vance advocated today, they have to do essentially with redistributing things to working class voters. And it is a very socialist view of things. Even his view of immigration is very zero-sum economically. He basically believes that if you bring in immigrants and they're competing with working class Americans are going to lose, or immigrants are going to lose. Whoever, races to the bottom first is going to lose. And that's a very different position than from some of these more traditional right-leaning economic thinkers who would say, you bring in the immigrants, they compete, the whole economy grows, and goods get cheaper. Overall, it's better. If you have people who are less skilled than you, then you inevitably end up in management positions over those immigrants, or you end up in, supervisor roles, those types of roles. That's ultimately better for you. That's like what more traditional right-wing economic theorists would say. And so it's really a very new kind of right-wing populism to make everything very, very zero-sum.
I am all for redistributive justice. We take everything from the immigrants and we give it to everybody else.
Completely. So just the opposite. It's still not free market capitalism. You're still stealing, but you're just stealing it from the poors.
It's not stealing, though. It's redistributive justice.
But no, what's interesting is that Arch, I have seen a lot of your viewers in the chat today, and I've seen a lot of people who I know are more right wing than me, and they call me a commie, etc., etc. But they were like cheering on Vance when he was talking about these things. I'm like, guys, you have to understand, like, these are not libertarian free market policies that Vance is putting forward here.
Dev.
Yes.
The last few years of socialism has made it very clear to us that extremism is good.
Oh, okay. That's what it is.
No, but like there's unironically there's an obvious argument to be made there. All of these fluffy duffy libertarian nonsense things are great. Like free healthcare. Oh, everybody comes here. Oh, your country's at war. Of course we're going to help you. All of these are great ideas, Dev. If you live in a world where you're not actively getting fucked. But if you exist in the months before the post-apocalypse, no, we're not going to adopt our more noble pursuits anymore. We have become savages, and my stick is still larger than yours.
Yeah, and I will say a big problem with the libertarian sort of approach to open borders is that it requires the government to actually enforce laws, and sometimes enforce laws very stringently in terms of just cracking down on crime. And that is something that it seems like there's hesitancy to do. So you can't really have open borders and a lax policy on these things. You have to be willing to strictly enforce property rights, including right to life. And if you're not doing that, the whole libertarian position just falls apart.
Well, this is the whole massive prison thing in Honduras or Guatemala or whatever fucking irrelevant Southern American country.
Salvador, yeah.
That one, yeah. Where else? Oh my God, they're going to jail without a trial. Oh, this is a horrible human rights violation. You know what? Yes, it is. It violates the vast majority of our principles when it comes to justice. But when the murder rate is beginning to hit 30%, justice is no longer on the table.
Yeah, well, I think that's right. Sometimes it's okay for the government to be a little bit authoritarian if ultimately it results in people being able to trust that they're not going to get murdered when they walk down the street or robbed. As soon as people start being able to trust that, then tensions can lower and businesses can grow, and then you can start relaxing things as society becomes more stable and interconnected. Yeah, someone in Dev's chat, I'm not reading this, they said peace, security, law, freedom. Absolutely. You have to start with the sort of basic things and build up to that freedom. And yeah, you just...
Anything beyond those basics are luxury beliefs to various degrees. And the more stable our society gets, the more luxuries we get to indulge in. That's why 20 years ago, when people were like, oh, well, look at Russia, look at how oppressive they are, we would go yeah, absolutely, look at us. We're so much better than them. And now we look at Russia and go, well, at least they're not arresting and shooting as many journalists as we are.
I like that you've started to use luxury belief more and more now that you know that a Norwegian invented the idea.
Well, of course.
Yeah, that's based.
But yeah, the last time I had this discussion on your channel, Arch, it was with Sargon and V, and the point that I was making is that I understand the state of exception, the Carl Schmitt state of exception idea, where basically whenever liberalism is confronted with a crisis, it has to go outside of its own rules to reestablish order. And, I know Sargon viewed that as a failing of liberalism, but frankly, I didn't. I thought that was actually just a necessary part of it, where it's like, you can have liberalism during peacetime. You can have those values when your society is intact. But, and we should want those things, and we should work towards those things. They're good things to have. But that doesn't mean that you should have them to the point that everything collapses. Which is why I'm more pragmatic.
Sensible position. Yeah. I think that makes sense.
There's also the again, just the general presentation of things was not kind to Vance here to finish up that. No, Vance. Waltz. Jeez, I hate these human beings.
Because he was all red, and he
I
was
sent
frowning
you
the whole time.
One of the pictures, like the meme machine is going to shit all over this, and that's kind of unfortunate because they actually had a nice, civil, honest debate as far as possible in today's environment. They shook hands, they respected each other as opponents, and they actually reached out and patted one another's back on occasion as well. The internet, however, is going to see a Chad rolling all over a cuck, and that's all that this is going to be. This is going to be.
Yeah. I'll just quickly put up like the two images on screen side by side, chat, so you know what's going to happen in the next 24 hours or so. You're going to see this image, and you're going to see this image, and they will be paired together. The smarmy Vance and the sad Waltz.
Yep.
And that will be what people take away from this.
Yep. Because that is the state of us. See, this is the expertise democracy. It's one of the things I will actually object to Dev here is that when we go to the expert, we don't actually go necessarily to the expert, as in the best qualified. We go to, hey, you've got a PhD in interpretive dance. Because we just go to the title. And you would be amazed at how many people who hold really high education titles and can be experts in their specialized fields fucking insane. Like, have you seen the NASA scientists who are like hardcore, fucking full-on shamanistic religion nonsense that pray to fucking trees and shit?
I think I've seen that before, yeah.
Yeah. Like, the issue is with the fetishization of experts is that often the experts are fucking autists, meaning they'll be really good at their one thing, and everything else they'll be just batshit insane. And that will color their view when you come to them and ask for their expertise beyond just, hey, calculate the trajectory of this rocket.
That's true. That's why you don't go to them. You don't go to them for anything other than that, though.
Yeah, you need to come to the experts for facts.
But
and
you do, though. That's the problem, because when you Corona, for example, when they were like, oh, the experts, Fauci.
Yep, I mean that was a failing of the idea. Yes, this will be something.
Or
that
the World Health Organization,
yeah.
Which again, like, it doesn't provide its expertise because there's no mechanism to just go to the dude directly. You go to his organization.
Hold on, Artemis. Everyone's sending me images now to put up. What the fuck? Okay.
I'm gonna head out.
Yeah, you know what? I should probably get out of here too. Anyway.
Do that.
But yeah.
But thank you for talking. It was lovely as always.
Yeah, it's always great having you two on.
Definitely. All right.
See you, Ted.
Goodbye, Arch.
Wait a
Goodbye,
second.
Dev.
So someone in the chat is like, "Good night, female voice. Listen, my friend."
Good night, Cody.
All right. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you guys.
All right. Bye.
See ya. And that's that, guys. It's just you and me now. It's just you and me. I guess I'll read the super chats before we get out of here. Right? Thanks for all your support tonight, guys. I do appreciate it. Thank you. Here. Let's give me just a moment here so I can get this all set up. Yep, I'll read super chats and then I'll go to bed because we are now at bedtime. I gotta go give Naomi her snuggles. Whereabouts? Let's see here. Give me a second, guys. Let's see what we got. Why can't I give you more super chats? It ain't my bank. Is it you or YouTube? It could be something that you put in the message. I've had that happen before, as well. When like I put something in a message and it hasn't like gone through, I had to like edit the message. For some reason, YouTube censors the word good in a super chat. Like, try it right now, guys. You shouldn't be able to send a super chat that says good. It's like, what the fuck, YouTube? Okay. Let's see here. Hold on. Those are the super chats from the Zelda stream earlier. By the way, guys, I'm no, they censor good in a super chat specifically, not in the. Oh my god, chat, calm down. Okay. So listen. By the way, guys, I'm playing Zelda on the channel as well. Tune into the gaming streams, guys. Come on, drop by and say hi. You don't got a super chat. Just come say hello. But yeah, those are the Zelda super chats. New Zelda game's good, by the way. Oh, god damn it. Blah. Oh, nope. Apparently it did work, Silver Camaro. Good for you. Okay, hold on. Let's see here. Lammer gear for $5. Waltz will have a bad time because the DHS admitted substance to the less than kosher China connection. Does Walls have a China connection? Oh yeah, the Tiananmen Square thing. Yeah, okay, I know what you mean. Terrace for $2. Dock workers said no automation. Yeah, that's not gonna work out for him, in my opinion. Blonde, $5. Dev as a diaper wearer is torn between the two candidates as JD Vance looks like a big baby and Walls like an old man with a diaper. Fuck you, dude. Okay. Borman, $10. Dev support funds. Thank you. Appreciated. Lives in Dev's walls, $5. If you take a shot every time they dodge a question, you can get hyper-realistic ghost or zombie costume for Halloween. Thanks, man. Terrace for $2. Nuclear. Damn it. I'm always going to pronounce nuclear like nuclear, dude. That's just how it is. Lives in Dev's walls, $2. Was Waltz instructed to look sad for clips? Well, that's a possibility. Stug for $2. Lives in Dev's walls. as in like Tim Walls. Nice. Thank you. Ballcraft, $2. Tim Waltz looks like the onion boss from Cuphead. He's the guy who's always crying, right? Yeah. Artemis Fowl, $10. Thank you very much, Artemis. Walls is not looking good here. I feel like his statements are not convincing. Regardless of what Kamala did as a prosecutor, she has done nothing good as a vice president. I have noticed that actually, that like Kamala does have a decent vice president, prosecutor record, in my opinion. I know everyone's like, "Oh my God, Kamala!" Oh no, Kamala's base. Fuck you. But like, they're leaning more on her prosecutorial record rather than anything she did as a rather than anything that she did as a VP, which is noticeable, I think. Let's continue on here real quick. Goodman for $2. The plot of Shrek, but with Judge Judy. Thanks, man. Frank the Monster, $5. Kids in Cages started with Obama. Honestly, the kids in cages thing is overblown. Like, if people are illegally coming across the border, you have to separate them because you have to figure out whether those kids actually belong with those adults. Terrace, $2. This is like I'm watching a Marvel movie. Thanks, man. Grammatron for $2. How to make housing cheaper. Build more houses. That's certainly a big part of it. That's for sure. Also, I know no one wants to hear this, but build giant apartment buildings, all right? You got it. Like, the fact that the lowest rung of society is still renting out an overpriced house, so you have like a bunch of these shit boxes just littering with all the suburban sprawl. No. You got to bulldoze some of that shit, build giant fucking apartment buildings, all right? And cram all the pores into that. You have to, or else you're not going to solve the problem. But no one wants to do it, though, because apartment buildings don't look good, pores don't want to live in them, and it drives down the property value of surrounding houses. But it's the only way to solve the problem. You have to do it. No, don't build commie blocks. You can make them look nice, guys. But they got to be apartment buildings. Snardigan, $5. I like this debate a lot. Regardless of who's winning and who's losing, it feels presidential in a way we haven't seen in close to a decade. I completely agree. Like, one of the big negative things Trump did was basically kill decorum, in my opinion. Lives in Dev's walls, $2. I'm convinced that someone told Walls to grumpy cat. I think he's just nervous, man. Frank the Monster, $5. How much you want to bet they fact check again? I'll donate $10 if they don't. Can someone donate 10 if they do? They did a fact check like once, I think. Not that much though, but they did it like once or twice. Charles, $5. Godzilla 2024. Thanks, man. Artemis Fowl, $2. Somebody arrest Vance. He's committing murder. Frank the Monster, $5. If they subsidize more things and tax the rich, they will just increase prices, so they effectively receive their taxes back. LOL. How did they go to college? Now, I agree with you, man. So you can't just subsidize everything. It doesn't work like that. Lady Columbia, $5. Everyone has common sense. This is anti-conceptual mindset of just taking concretes and not developing theories and explanations of complex phenomenon. Yeah, that is one of Vance's weak points that sounds strong. He appeals to common sense, but like common sense is actually not that common. Here in Lady Columbia, $5. Vance's pronatalism is just welfare mama stuff. You do have the right to abort as it's your body until the kid is viable. It's not a full human. I mean, I'm generally pro-choice and also pro-welfare mama stuff anyway, unless you're abusing it, obviously. If you're abusing it, you should probably lose your kids. Jazz of the Spark. Thanks, Jazz, for the $5. Hats off to you, Dev. No one's shorter and fatter than you. Thanks, man. Blonde for $2. If Kamala wins, it'll be because of women and abortion. Yeah, Blonde, get the fuck out of here. Jesus, you just need to get your dick sucked. I swear to God. Okay. Artemis, $20. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. You know, Wick TV was trying to tell me that Vance was a liability and Waltz was going to be better. Clearly, Waltz is fucking the couch now. Thank you, man. Brandman. Hello, fat man. How many times you called call me tonight? Not that much this time, dude. Not that much. But thank you very much, Brandman. Rosa was here for a bit. Rosa's great, man. Thanks for the 20. I, as a woman, should be allowed to abort babies in the first 77 years. It should be my right, because I'm a woman. Got it. Understood. Borman, $10. The gun is #1 cause of death for children has been debunked since it came out. Oh. The data omits children under 1 year old and adds 18 to 20-year-olds. It is car accidents that is #1. Actually, kind of seems believable, frankly. That makes sense to me, yeah. Blonde. Vance seems both visionary and pragmatic. Very good. Yeah. Terrace, $10. Are the kids at Hogwarts concerned their school looks like a fort? No, but the kids at Hogwarts go through, like, life-threatening situations every fucking year. But thanks for the $10, man. Not Alfarius, $5. TBF, if high schools look like forts, that implies they might have prettier architecture. Give me some castle-shaped schools. Yeah, oh god. Dude, modern high schools fucking suck. Fuck. Ardos Fowl, $5. Did Waltz just say he became friends with school shooters? I recall him stumbling over that. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I'm also not sure if it would necessarily be bad. You know, like if you could oh, did the stream die? Uh-oh. Oh, you're back? Okay. Oh, well, welcome back. Anyway. Like if you were friends with someone who wanted to shoot up a school but didn't, and you could like get into his mindset a bit and talk to him, and sympathize a bit, and maybe you could stop it, that would probably be a good thing, you know. I'm not sure if that's what he meant, or maybe he was just stumbling over his words, you know. Lives in Des Walls, $2. Imagine these two are at the top of the ticket. Yeah, man, these are both better candidates than the actual two. Oh no, we're lagging. Not on my end. Oh, the Twitch stream didn't go down. Must be YouTube. Rip. I'll just keep going. $2. Ballcraft. Call me blocks for all. Based. Web 720. For $10. JD Vance is a mega communist and socialist. On his wiki under labor unions, he supports the conservative group Americans Compass, which supports workers' councils, Soviets, and sectorial bargaining. Yep, mega communism is happening, guys. It's happening. Frank the Monster, $2. Can we vote for these guys instead? Yep, I agree with you. Lady Columbia, $10. Thank you very much. You have the freedom of action to pursue wealth, family, status, dreams, and your health, but you don't have the right to have them subsidized you or yell at reality to give you things. Abolish subsidies. I don't fully agree, but I see your point. Lady Columbia, $5. Most energy is on private land. Problem is, the energy market has been unstable from decades of policies, and the U.S. has been an exporter again for 3 years. Thank you. Lady Columbia, $2. You don't have the right to a family, love, or a house. Yeah, I get your point. This is the rights conversation. I did a video on rights. I understand. Terrace, that's how insurance works. Yeah, here's the thing. The difference between health insurance and like car insurance or whatever is that healthcare is one of those is significantly more essential than a car, right? Healthcare is a relatively unique product in that you can infinitely raise the price on it and people will still buy it. You know, like demand does not respond as well to price increases for healthcare versus other products, because if the choice is pay all the money you have or die, you'll choose to pay all the money you have, right? So it's not it doesn't function in like a simple basic supply demand curve. Charles Anderson, $25. Thanks you very much, dude. For me, medicine and doctors cost more when I have insurance. Plus, I have the insurance cost. Not having insurance is actually saving money. It's cheaper. This is true under Trump, and it's true under Trump, and it's true now. How about we fix that? Yeah, American insurance is the big problem, frankly. It's fucking terrible. Lady Columbia, $2. Work while pregnant, like broodmares, lazy females. Holy shit, dude. Lady Columbia, $2. It's just tribalism. I won't pay for your kids. Oh my god. Lady Columbia, no. Pay for my kids. D the End for $3. Base Dev, thank you. Lives in Dev's Walls, $10. Thank you very much, man. Watching my own emotional reaction, the pro-nuclear and domestic manufacturing stance, and a reflex against moderator snark have somewhat undermined my very serious moldbug misgivings. I need to think. Yeah, so like a core component of moldbug is viewing democracy as the problem for almost everything. And then built on top of moldbug stuff is stuff like being pro-nuclear, is stuff like domestic manufacturing, is stuff like tariffs and protectionism. So yeah, the anti-democracy thing is kind of fundamental. Borman, $5. You can't yell fire in the theater is the Marilyn Manson removed his ribs to suck his peen in the legal world. It's a complete farce and it's bunk. Yep. That's the funny thing, is that the Supreme Court actually ruled that you can, in fact, yell fire in a crowded theater. Silver Camaro, $2. Waltz looked like he pooed in a diaper. Fuck off. Okay. Artemis Fowl, $10. It's a giant weak point for the Republicans. Dev, if the current polling is anything to go by, there's nothing to indicate that it's impacting the election in the way you claim. I've seen polls all over the place, man. I've seen some polls showing that like Kamala's doing very poorly in some traditional Democrat strongholds. But I've also seen polls showing that like places, like red states, where Trump won by like 40 points, Trump's only winning by like 10 points. And like that you know, if Kamala's winning that hard in a not winning, but like losing to 10 points instead of 40 points in a red state, that spells doom for the Republicans. So like I've seen polling going all over the place in this election. I don't fucking know what to do with the polls, man. I don't know. What's Moldbug? Moldbug is a writer, Mencius Moldbug, and basically he wrote like back in the 2000s. He wrote a bunch of political philosophy that is being used by like the new right wing guys like JD Vance, and it's not neoconservative at all. It's not like market oriented and you know going to war overseas and stuff like that, and like you know American empire. It's very much not that kind of right wing. It's actually much more like right wing socialism. And yeah, his real name's Curtis Yarvin. Who won the debate? Probably Vance. I think Vance won the debate. Just like on pure optics, Vance won the debate. And on terms of policy, they agreed a lot. So like, who knows, right? But in terms of optics, Vance won it. But they're both good though. They're both good. $2 from E Platypus Unum. Weeping Waltz keeps turning red. Weird. Yeah. Olin for $5. Dev, you seen Hacking Democracy? It's been bad for a long time. I have to look that up. I'll take a look. Thank you. Let me just put this aside here for now. Zoop. 2006. Oh. Bev Harris. Is Bev Harris related to Kamala Harris? I'll look at it later, but thank you. Artemis Fowl, $5. Polling favors Democrats consistently. Polling is off, but the polling, if made accurate, would be even worse for the Dems. I'm not convinced of that. But thank you, Artemis. Chaos Lear Len, $2. I didn't know Layer the Tomato was from Minnesota. Thanks, man. Artemis, $5. Dev says Waltz is getting the moral victory. I didn't say that, Artemis. I didn't say that, but thank you. Stug, $2. Can you yell fire in a crowded aquarium? Anonymous Coward, $5. Lefties would be salivating right now over the union strike if it weren't for the diametrically opposed personality difference of actual union workers. Yeah, the online Twitter lefties are not paying attention to that story at all, it seems. Steel Manning, $5. Waltzily, you swallowed a gallon of horse spunk the whole debate. Holy fuck, dude. Filthy Freeaboo, $5. We had a proper debate that wasn't a disaster for the first time in like a decade. This is a glorious day for America. It was refreshing, dude. I hope most people just look at that and they're just like, oh my god, I can't wait for Trump to cycle out. We're so back, please. I did see people saying like I saw people on Twitter during the debate basically say like it feels so good that there's two serious candidates, like from both the left and the right. Blonde, $2. Justice is circumstantial to law and order. It said J. Edgar Hoover apparently. Oh, thank you. Chaos Lear Len, $2. Dev, Google Larry the Tomato ASAP. Okay, what's going on? Oh, okay. Yeah, I get it. Fuck you. Thanks, man. Let me refresh the supers. I'll read the new ones. Chaos Lear Len. I apologize for twice saying Larry the Tomato when Waltz looks like is Bob the Tomato. Larry was the cucumber. Oh, okay. Thank you. Not Alfarius, $2. Oh, everyone's trying good. Thanks, guys. Sean King, $5. Try super chatting the name of an old dog with rabies from a Disney. Old Yeller. Truly, the super chat filter is a mystery. Yeah, I've tried to super chat like he is a good person or something, and it hasn't gone through on other channels. So I don't fucking know, dude. Sean King lives in I never let me post Old Yeller on here before. I don't know, man. But thanks for the super chats anyway, guys. Zokai, how would you rate the moderators for this VP debate? Better than the previous one. Better than the previous ones. Because they interfered a lot. Like, this interfered more than I wanted, but they interfered less. Not Alfarius, $5. Dev not liking mega communist is just one more piece of evidence he's a commie. Commies utterly despise other kinds of commies. Wait, we are very pleased on the right, but keep blackpilling your fans. Love it. What are you talking about, dude? Listen, Snot Boogie, most of my fans are right-wingers, even though I'm not. Like, what do you... Listen, if you're being a partisan brain about this shit, then get the fuck out of here. I don't want you around. All right, Sean King, $5. I spoke with many immigrants, and you know things are bad when they're saying there are too many immigrants. Yep. Is that it? All right, I'm just going to get rid of this guy. Here, you can take the ban pill, you fucking retard. Okay. I think that's that. I think that's that, guys. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you for all the support. Here. Let's go raid a VTuber friend of mine. Because it's always good to raid her and kind of boost her numbers a little bit. You don't got to stick around, obviously, but get your coffee cups ready. And we're going to go raid my friend Lifu, who hopefully one day we'll have on the Archcast. Let's go. Coffee. Let's go raid Lifu. I think I have it set up to properly raid Lifu. Yes, I did. Let's go. Lifu's a good friend of mine. Make sure to say hi. Thanks for being here, guys. And I'll see you. If you're only watching this shit, I guess I'll see you on the election night stream. So have a good night, guys. I love you.